Hello and welcome to another tutorial from MooICT. In this tutorial, we're going to be creating a Unity Android project called Bubble Wrap Pop-up. Let's take a look at what this project is. I'm going to hit play here. It's connected to the Android device, so I should be able to control the touch controls from the Android device. As you can see here, I have populated the camera with a lot of bubble wrap images, right? And as I tap on them, they switch images to a popped bubble wrap, and it does a nice little sound with a particle effect attached to them. So as I pop all of them, this is quite satisfying. I'm just going to leave one right there. Okay, so as I get to the last one, as I pop the last one, it resets all the bubble wraps back to its original one. So then you can start popping them again. All of the assets that I have used for this project will be available in the link in the description, so you can download them to follow along. Let's go and make a new project in Unity. Okay, so inside of this window, let's click on New. Okay, this is going to be a 2D project. So just call this one we're going to call it a game. All right, let's click on Create. Okay, before we start, I've used the grid tutorial, so how to make a 2D grid in Unity. I've used the information from this tutorial, and then I've added some more bits to it so it actually works on mobile. So I will leave the tutorial link here just in case you guys want to follow it through. Okay, so just to start, what we'll do is I've downloaded all the assets here. So we've got our two bubble images. I'm just going to make it a thumbnail probably. Okay, so you got your the unpopped bubble and then the popped one, and of course we got the pop sound as well. So I'm just going to drag and drop those into Unity. So if I go and open up Unity here, drag and drop those in here, so that would actually register those for the part. That's great. And then obviously let's go and change the build settings. Go to build settings, Android, and switch platform here. Okay, so that's done. We're going to close this one. Go to edit, project settings. I'm just going to make sure the editor knows to run this one on the device. So I'm just going to say from the devices, choose any Android device and then just close that. Okay, now if I go to game, from the aspect ratio, I want it in a portrait mode. Okay, click on the camera. Let's change the camera background to something slightly lighter. Maybe a little bit more lighter than that, so it looks a bit bluish but not too bluish. Okay, there we are. Okay, so with that done, we're going to create an empty game object here. That's going to be called a grid manager. So I'm going to create an empty game object, call this one grid manager, like so. And then this is basically just going to be an empty game object that will have the script attached to it. Okay, so now let's attach the script to it. So I'm just going to right click here, create C# script, call this one a grid manager. Okay, so and then after that I'm just going to go to the grid manager here, add component grid manager, and then that should be attached to the game object. Okay, also what we need to do, because we're going to be playing a sound with the each time we tap on the bubble wrap to pop it. So I'm just going to need to add a audio source here. So say audio source like so, and we can just leave that one blank for now. Okay, let's open the script in Visual Studio. Double click on the script. Okay, let's start with some variables. So first we're going to say int, and then this is going to be a 2D array. So we're going to do the square brackets open and close, and inside of it it's going to be a comma. So that basically tells the program it's a 2D array. Let's call this one a grid. Okay, and then we create several integers. So call this one vertical, horizontal, columns, and rows. Okay, and after that we need two sprites, so we're going to call it public sprite, full bubble, and public sprite popped bubble. Okay, let's do a public audio source, called sound, then a public game object called particles. We also need a list, so we'll do a list. Oh, did that wrong. List game object. Okay, we'll call this one bubble collection. Equals new list game object, and then allow that. Okay, so each of the bubble that we actually spawn onto the screen will be saved inside of this list. Okay, let's go make a new function here. So we'll say private void, say spawn bubbles, and then put that inside of here. And inside there, we're going to need to accept two variables, so int x and int y. Okay, so they're going to determine the x and y value of the bubbles that we spawn into the screen. Okay, let's start with the start function here. So we're just going to make some space. Let's start with the vertical first. Vertical equals 2. We're going to convert it to a int, and then we need to find out the orthographical size of the camera. So say orthographic size. So that's going to change it into an int. So if there's any decimal points, it's just going to use the whole numbers. Okay, and then we'll say horizontal is equals to vertical times screen.width divided by screen.height, like so. Okay, and then say columns going to be equals to horizontal times 3, rows is equals to vertical times 2, and then so we say grid equals new int. I'm going to do the square brackets here, and then we'll say columns and then rows. Okay, so now that the grid has been assigned, we need to populate the grid. Okay, so we need to say here is for I is fine. Instead of length here, say columns. Okay, and then we also need to do another for because it's a 2D array. So if we run just one loop, we're going to run through one part of it, and then we need to run another loop to run through the other part of it. Okay, so instead of I here, let's call this one J. So it changes on all of them, and then this one is going to be rows. So if I is equals to 0 and I is less than columns, or if J is equal to 0 and J is less than rows, then we're just going to run the spawn bubbles function, okay, with the I and J, because I is the columns and J is the rows. Okay, so it's going to populate the grid for us. Okay, that's it for the start function, and now let's go and do the spawn bubbles bit. Okay, inside the spawn bubbles we need a new game object, so with the capital G. Okay, so say temp object equals to new game object, and inside of here we can give that game object a name. So we'll just say x plus x, then plus y plus y. So this way you can actually see it on the game hierarchy, so we know which ones has been populated and where. Okay, so let's just say temp object dot transform dot position is equals to new vector 2, because it's a 2D project. Then we can say inside of the brackets here, you can say x minus brackets horizontal plus 0.5f. Okay, so that's how we're gonna layer it up in the horizontal position, and then you can say y minus vertical minus 0.5f. Okay, and then right after that we need to create a variable here. Let's call this one temp sprite is equals to temp object dot add component, right? So we need to add a sprite renderer to the component. Okay, and also in order for the touch to work on the game objects, we actually need to add a box collider as well. So say temp collider equals temp object dot add component box collider. Okay, so that way it dynamically adds it to the game object that we are creating here. And after that, we can call the temp sprite again. Dot sprite is equals to full bubble. Okay, so whichever bubble that we assign to this here will then get assigned to the game object. And lastly, we will add that to the bubble collection. Dot add the temp object. Okay, so that game object here is going to get added to that collection over here. Okay, so that's it for the spawn bubbles function. Right, back at Unity, I'm just going to try and see if this one actually spawns the sprites for us. So right now, as you can see, when I click on the grid manager, I have got the full bubble, popped bubble, sound, and particles options here. So I'm just going to drag and drop these. Actually, before we drag and drop these, I just need to make a couple of small changes to these two, because the sprite sizes are about 308. So I just need to select, I'm going to hold shift and select both of these sprites here. And inside the pixel per unit, I'm going to say 308. Press enter. If I click away, it's going to say apply. I will apply these, and then that should do that. Perfect. So if I go to grid manager again, I can say full bubble is this one, popped bubble is this one. Right, we can actually drag and drop that audio clip to the audio source one here, and then just drag that audio source to the sound. Okay, and after that we just got the particle to add. All right, so with all of that linked together, let's try and run this and see if it works. Okay, brilliant. So as you can see right now, the bubbles have been populated onto the screen. If I go behind the scenes, you'll see that it's actually going and populating it for the size of the camera. Okay, slightly outside, but it's okay. That will do for us to just do as a beginner task. All right, let's go back to Visual Studio. Inside the update, let's say if input.touch count is greater than 0 and input.touches, let's grab the first one from there, dot phase is equals touch phase, touch phase dot began. All right, so if you tapped on the screen, so ray is new ray is equals to camera dot main dot screen point to ray, and then we'll just get that input dot touches position from there. After that, we need a raycast hit, hold hit. Then now we can say physics raycast, and inside of here we need to pass in the ray and the hit that is going to be returned to us. Okay, so right here we need to check now is the bubble that we tapped onto, if it has the full bubble image. Okay, so what we can say is if hit dot transform dot game object dot get component, so we can get the sprite renderer. Okay, we can get the sprite renderer component from there, and then call the sprite equals full bubble. So if it has that image attached to it, if it does, then it gets a hit dot transform dot get component again, get the sprite renderer dot sprite is equals to pop bubble. Okay, and of course we're going to say then sound dot play, play and awake. Okay, back in Unity, let's press play on this one. So as you can see, it actually makes a sound when we load it up. I think I just need to switch off the auto sound bit. So I'm just going to press a couple of them, see what happens. Okay, perfect. So it's registering the hits, and if I tap on a already popped one, it doesn't work. I'll pop all of them. Okay. All right, cool. So now that they're all been popped, as you can see here that they are named as well, so it'll show you which one is which, and it also has the sprite renderer that we added, also has the box collider that we added as well. Okay, that is great. Now what we need to do is just need to basically, yeah, so inside the audio source, the one that says play and awake, I'm just going to turn that off. So I don't want it to play straight away. I want it to play when I press on something. Nice. All right, that's great. So back in Visual Studio, in order for us to check if all of the bubbles been popped, we just need to import a link namespace. It makes it a lot easier to work with the list to search through all the items inside of it. So I'm just going to go and import that here. So I say using system.link, okay, because that actually allows us to use a all search keyword for the game objects. And let me just show you how that works. So say here if bubble collection.all, like so. I'm just going to make a bracket here, another one. So we create a local variable called O, and then do a whereas O dot game object dot get component sprite renderer dot sprite is equals not 3 full, no, actually we're looking for the popped bubble, not the full one. So popped bubble. So right now what we're saying is, I'm just going to minimize this one so you can see it better. So if all the items inside of the bubble collection, so this is a local variable here, is looking for if the game objects have the sprite is equals to popped bubble, right? So if that is true, we just want to say debug.log, not log error, just log. Okay, say all the bubbles are popped. Okay, now resetting. Now resetting. After that, what we're going to do is we're just going to run a for each loop. Say for each. Okay, we're just going to run through all of them. So say instead of variable, say game object. Okay, let's call this one X in bubble collection. Let's say, and then next to it say to list. All right, and then say X dot get component sprite renderer. Oh, sprite renderer with a thing here. Say sprite is equals to full bubble. Let's go back to Unity, run this project. Let's go and pop all of them. We're going to leave one behind. Okay, so the last one here, and then as I pop the last one, they all reverse back to the first bubble instead of the second one. Excellent. Now what we're going to do is we need to create a particle that's basically going to play as we pop the bubbles. So now if I go to the scene, zoom in a little bit. Okay, right click here, say particle, where's it, FX, particle system. Okay, so we're just going to create a small particle system here. Right, we call this one, instead of particle, so we call this one burst. Okay, so you're just going to burst, you know, as we're doing this. Okay, I'm just going to leave it as looping for now, so you know we can see how that works. So the duration, I'm going to set that to 1. Okay, start lifetime is going to be 0.7. Okay, so it's smaller. Okay, start speed will be 20. So you need burst out. Okay, so inside the emissions, we're going to go and add another one here, and then just say rate over time is 0 instead of 10. So it, you know, it gives a burst. Okay, let's go to shape. So after the emission, go to shape. Let's change the shape to a sphere. So it actually makes a nice little burst animation there. Then after that, we're going to go to limit velocity over lifetime. Okay, limit velocity over lifetime, and then add that to it. So the speed here is going to be 10. Okay, and dampen is going to be 1. Okay, so as you can see, it's doing a nice little burst for us. Okay, and then let's change the color over lifetime. Click on color over lifetime, and then we'll just pick like a blue and a white gradient. So we're just going to choose, I've already made one, so you can just choose something similar to that. And then after that, we're just going to say size over lifetime. So click on size over lifetime. Just going to go and click on the little bar here, and then we're able to edit it. So if I move that over and then move that over here, so as you can see, it makes it like a little quick burst animation. So basically it starts off bigger and then ends smaller. So with that done, let's go here, and now we also need to stop the looping right now. So because I'm quite happy with the way the particle actually showed up, so I'm just going to stop the looping here, and then it just needs to play once we tap on something, right? And that's it. So because this is a particle one, I'm going to just reset. So in the transform, I'm just going to reset everything to 0 so it stays in the middle there. Okay, I'm going to drag and drop that particle to the project here, so it actually makes it into an asset. I can delete that one from here now. Okay, so we only got one more thing to do, which is a particle. Drag and drop that over to the particle section in the grid manager. Let's go back to Visual Studio. So right after it plays the sound, we're going to add that particle bit here. So say game object, let's call it particle without the s, equals to instantiate, do the brackets for the instantiation. We're going to call the particles, which is the one here, so the one that's actually attached to the prefab. Okay, and then let's call the particles here, and right after that I'm going to say hit dot transform dot position. So that's where the particle is going to spawn. Okay, so that's the particle name, where the particle is going to spawn. And then lastly we say quaternion, set that to identity. Particle dot get component particle system, and then we shall play that. So just say play. Okay, so that's going to create an instance of the particle, and then that's going to start playing the particle as it's put into the scene. Okay, so now if you go back to Unity, you can take a look at that. Let's run this project. Okay, so if I tap on one of them, as you can see, it's making a copy of the particle, and you can see it on the screen. Okay, one problem that we're going to be facing is that as the particle systems are creating the clones of it, it's actually making lots of different game objects for it, and it's leaving them in the background, so it's not deleting them after it's done. So as I'm tapping more, it's adding more to it. So, but the particle system do have a option for us to check what to do with the object once it's finished playing. So if I stop that now, if I click on the asset there, I can go to the particle systems properties, and then right here it says stop action, right? So once it stops after it's played its animation, and then we can either disable it, destroy it, or do some sort of callback. So what we're interested in is we want to destroy it. Okay, so if I keep the option on here and play it again, I'm just going to scroll down to the last one there, and then as you can see, if I can tap on the screen, okay, so it will add particles to it, but then once it's finished playing, it destroys it from the game. Okay, so if I pop all of them, okay, it resets. Okay, so this has been an interesting tutorial to do. We've created a 2D application, also a game sort of, in Unity. We used particle systems, we used sound, and we also did a lot of C# scripts as well. Hopefully you enjoyed this tutorial, and I will see you in the next one.